My name is Claire Morrison. I'm 38 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I got off a transport plane after my fifth deployment. Tonight, I'm standing in my cousin's living room at our annual family reunion, pretending I don't feel completely out of place. The room is warm with laughter, the kind of easy, effortless joy that feels foreign to me now. My relatives gather in small clusters, balancing wine glasses and tiny plates, swapping updates about new homes, job promotions, vacation properties, and college acceptances. I recognize the rhythm of it all, but it feels like I'm watching a play I forgot the lines to years ago. I used to think coming home would feel like comfort, but I've come to learn that the battlefield can be quieter than a family party when you don't belong. People smile at me in passing, but no one really asks questions. And maybe that's easier for everyone. My brother's talking about his new consulting firm near the fireplace, and our uncle hangs on every word. My cousin Lauren just got accepted into a PhD program and is already talking about publishing. The pride in their voices is obvious, and no one hides how impressed they are. I stand near the back, sipping soda from a plastic cup, wondering how many more hours I need to stay before it's polite to leave. Someone asks where I've been stationed, but before I can answer, they're already turning to greet someone else. I get it. My work doesn't come with glossy brochures or job titles people can show off. I don't have a LinkedIn full of buzzwords or a fiancé with a flashy ring. All I have are years carved into me by sandstorms, night patrols, and the weight of decisions most people never have to make. Dinner is buffet style, but somehow everyone finds a seat while I linger awkwardly near the kitchen doorway. The plates clatter, and the room fills with stories about new clients, renovations, and summer internships. I laugh in the right places, smile when expected, and keep chewing through the silence inside me. It happens when the dessert plates are being cleared. My Aunt Margaret, tipsy from her second glass of Chardonnay, leans across the table and squints at me like she's just remembered I'm here. You could have done so much more with your life than just being a soldier, she says, waving her spoon like a punctuation mark. No one laughs. A few people glance my way and quickly look back at their napkins. She keeps talking about real estate, as if what she said wasn't a slap across my chest. I feel my throat tighten, but I don't say anything. I just sit there, back straight, jaw locked, nodding like I've learned to do in rooms where speaking costs too much. I've survived ambushes, mortar fire, and nights filled with screams. But nothing prepares you for the quiet sting of being dismissed by the people who are supposed to know you best. In that moment, I'm not a captain. I'm not a decorated officer. I'm just Claire, the girl they don't understand and don't really want to. I've been invisible for most of my life. Not in the dramatic, teenage angst kind of way, but in the quiet, subtle way that sinks into your bones over time. I was the firstborn, the calm one, the helper, the one who didn't need much. Then my brother came along, and everything shifted. He was loud, charming, and naturally gifted in all the ways that earned praise at parent-teacher conferences. Straight A's, varsity sports, student council, he ticked every box, and my parents couldn't get enough. I wasn't jealous, not at first. I was proud of him, I really was. But pride starts to rot when it's never returned. Every time I brought home a good grade or won a small award, it was treated like a fluke, like something that didn't quite count. Family dinners became a showcase for my brother's newest accomplishments. If I mentioned something I was proud of, the conversation moved on before I could finish the sentence. At some point, I just stopped bringing things up. In high school, I started to feel the walls closing in. Everyone had a plan for me: college, business degree, maybe a corporate job if I worked hard enough. But none of it felt like mine. I was drowning in expectations that didn't fit. I remember the day I walked into the Army recruitment office. It was raining, and I didn't tell anyone I was going. The sergeant behind the desk looked surprised, but didn't ask questions. I signed the papers and felt something crack open in my chest for the first time in years. When I told my parents, my mom's face fell. She asked if I was doing this to get attention. My dad just sighed and said, "Well, maybe this will teach you some discipline." It wasn't supported. It was a dismissal wrapped in polite disappointment. Boot camp was brutal. I cried most nights the first week. My body ached, my skin blistered, and I questioned everything. But there was also something clean about it. For once, I was being tested for who I really was, not who people wanted me to be. I came out stronger, leaner, sharper. I started leading teams, earning respect. My first deployment changed me. The dust, the fear, the impossible choices, they all left marks, inside and out. But I found a purpose there I'd never found at home. Still, no matter what I did, it wasn't enough for my family. When I was promoted, I sent a photo in uniform. My mom texted back, "You look so serious." When I got my first commendation, my dad said, "That's nice," then changed the subject to my brother's startup. Even now, after years of service, medals, and missions, they talk about me like I'm still figuring things out. My brother buys a new car, and it's front page news in our family group chat. I fly across the world on a classified mission, and no one even notices I'm gone. It's not that I need applause. I don't want a parade. I just want to matter. I want someone to ask how I'm really doing, what I've seen, what I've lost. I want to stop being the background character in my own family story. But I've learned to stop hoping for that. I've learned that some people will never see past the version of you they've chosen to believe. And sometimes, it's easier to let them stay blind than to keep tearing yourself open trying to be seen. We were wheels up before dawn. No lights, no chatter. The air inside the aircraft was thick with tension. Every soldier strapped in and silent, eyes forward, weapons cradled close. I ran through the mission brief for the 5th time in my head, even though I had it memorized backward. Our target was a fortified compound outside Jalalabad. Intel confirmed a high-value arms dealer with ties to multiple insurgent networks. What they didn't tell us, what we learned the hard way, was that the place had been reinforced 2 days earlier. Extra bodies, heavier firepower, more traps. As we approached the drop zone, I could feel my pulse sinking with the hum of the rotors. I gave the signal, and we fast roped into the night, boots hitting dirt just past the tree line. The wind kicked up sand, and sweat stung my eyes, but there was no time to blink. We moved in formation, low and fast, scanning every rooftop and shadow. The compound sat behind a broken wall of rusted sheet metal, patched with scrap. From a distance, it looked abandoned. Up close, it smelled like fuel and fear. The breach was clean, at first. One flash, one bang, and we were in. Rooms cleared, bodies dropped, orders whispered through the comms. It felt like muscle memory until it wasn't. The ambush came from underground. A false wall in the east corridor blew open. And suddenly, everything was fire and noise. I remember the way the floor shook, the way my earpiece screamed with static and panic. 1 second, we were clearing a hallway, the knee, XT. We were fighting for air and cover. Corporal Jensen was hit first, then Martinez. I dragged both behind what was left of a crumbling support beam, firing back between shouts. Every second stretched long and loud, the kind of chaos that erases everything but instinct. I didn't think. I just moved, threw a smoke grenade, pulled Jensen up with one arm, while Martinez clung to my belt. We made it back to the outer wall with 2 others, covering fire slicing past us. I yelled into the radio until my voice cracked, demanding air support, extraction, anything. We lost 4 that night. 4 good people. I wrote each letter to their families myself, sitting alone in a concrete barrack while the others slept. I still hear their names in my dreams. But we completed the mission. We secured the intel, identified 2 supply lines, and confirmed the target's death. A week later, I was pulled into a debrief at the embassy, and a general I'd never met looked me dead in the eye and said, "You held that team together. You brought them home. That's what leadership looks like." They told me my name was being submitted for the Medal of Honor. I didn't know what to say. I still don't. No one joins the military for medals. You do it because someone has to, because you can't look away when things go bad. Back home, no one knew. I couldn't talk about the mission. It was classified, buried under layers of clearance and silence. So when people asked what I'd been up to, I said, "Just got back." Then I changed the subject. At the reunion, when my aunt made her comment, when they all smiled politely and moved on, they had no idea. They didn't know that 2 weeks earlier, I'd crawled through blood and concrete to save lives, that I'd watched men die and still led the rest out alive. They didn't know because I wasn't allowed to tell them. And even if I could, I don't think they would have heard me. Not really. The clinking of silverware had started to quiet, and wine glasses were more than half empty when Aunt Margaret stood up, glass in hand, her voice already rising over the table. "I just want to say how proud I am of our family," she began, her smile stretching wide, a little too rehearsed. "We've got lawyers, engineers, business owners. Every one of you kids is doing something amazing." She gestured toward my brother first, of course, and then made her way around the table like she was handing out awards. Her tone was syrupy, full of warmth for each success story, each framed diploma, each wedding announcement. But when she reached the end of my table, she paused for just a breath too long. She looked right at me, then shifted her gaze slightly past, like maybe she'd already covered me and forgot. "And of course, we're just so lucky to have everyone home and safe," she said vaguely, raising her glass in a weak half-toast. There it was, a whole career erased, in the space of a polite sentence. I felt my face go still, not surprised, just tired. It wasn't the first time I'd been left out of the family highlight reel, and it probably wouldn't be the last. Then Uncle David, already a little drunk and never known for subtlety, let out a low chuckle. "Well, not everyone can chase a real career. Some of us get stuck, guarding parking lots for a living." The table went still. I heard forks set down and someone cough into a napkin. I didn't speak. No one did. For a second, the hum of the party vanished, replaced by the sharp cold of humiliation. I stared at my plate, feeling the blood rise behind my ears, but my face didn't move. They thought I wouldn't say anything, that I would just take it, like always. And for a long time, I had. But something in me shifted right then. Quiet but final. I wasn't going to sit quietly through another toast built on fiction. Not tonight. The silence was still hanging thick in the air when the knock came. Sharp, deliberate, echoing through the dining room like a stone dropped in a still pond. People turned, startled, and someone muttered, "Who would knock at this hour?" My aunt paused mid-sip. My uncle frowned, squinting toward the front hallway. I stood up slowly, heart pounding, unsure why I suddenly felt like the ground beneath me was shifting. Before anyone could move, the door opened. A man in full-dress uniform stepped inside. Tall, composed, ribbons lined across his chest. His presence changed the room instantly. He scanned the room once, then spoke clearly. "I'm looking for Captain Claire Morrison." My name rang through the space like a bell, and every face turned toward me at once. I stepped forward without thinking, my hands suddenly cold. He reached into a case and pulled out a velvet box. "Captain Morrison, on behalf of the President of the United States and the Department of Defense, I have been authorized to deliver this to you directly." He opened it, revealing the Medal of Honor nestled inside, glinting under the chandelier light. Gasps spread across the table. A wine glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered quietly on the floor. No one moved. No one breathed. "This recognition is for extraordinary leadership and valor during Operation Red Sands," the officer said, his voice steady. "Your actions saved the lives of 6 American soldiers under direct enemy fire." He extended the box toward me. I accepted it with both hands, but my eyes stayed on the faces in the room. My brother, mouth slightly open. My aunt, pale. My uncle stared at the medal like it had teeth. I nodded to the officer. "Thank you, sir." Then I turned back to the table, holding the medal that no one in that room ever imagined would belong to me. For a second, I just stood there, medal still in my hand, the room frozen in some stunned, awkward silence. No one spoke. You could hear the soft clatter of a fork shifting on a plate and the creak of someone shifting in their chair. I looked around at the faces I had known my whole life. People who had watched me grow up, who had seen me leave home, but never once asked what I was walking into. I took a breath, steady and full, then finally spoke. "I've served in the military for almost 2 decades," I said, my voice low but clear. "I've led teams into combat. I've held the hands of dying men. I've written letters to mothers who would never see their sons again. I've carried the weight of decisions that don't have a right answer." I let that hang in the air for a moment. People were still staring at me, mouths slightly open, unsure of what to do with the truth now that it was standing in front of them. No one looked proud, just guilty. "Do you know what hurts the most?" I asked, glancing at my aunt, then my uncle, then my brother. Not the danger, not the long nights or the fear or the silence that follows a firefight. It's that not one of you ever asked. I turned to my father, who hadn't moved since the officer left. "Not once did you call and ask what I was doing. Not once did you ask if I was okay. I came home bruised, burned, and exhausted. You asked if I was going to apply to grad school." My voice cracked a little, but I kept going. "You all decided who I was a long time ago. You picked a story that was easier to swallow, the one where I was lost or stubborn or drifting. And you never stopped to wonder if maybe I wasn't lost at all." I looked down at the medal in my hand, then held it up. "This doesn't make me better than anyone. But it means something. It means I stood in a place no one else wanted to go. I did it with everything I had, and I did it alone because I knew no one here would understand." Someone at the table tried to speak, but I shook my head. "I'm not angry," I said. "I just need you to hear me. I'm not ashamed of the life I chose. I'm proud of what I've done, but I'm tired of pretending like it doesn't matter." I looked back at my brother. "You've built a business. That's incredible. But I've carried lives in my hands, and I've never once heard any of you say that mattered." The silence that followed was heavier than anything I'd carried in the field. No one moved. No one reached for a drink or changed the subject. They just sat there, finally seeing me, maybe for the first time. I didn't expect applause. I didn't want it. I just wanted the truth in the room, and for once I let it be enough. I looked at all of them, the people I had spent my whole life trying to belong to. The ones who thought they knew me because we shared blood and birthdays and holiday dinners. But they didn't. Not really. They knew a version of me they had made up in their heads years ago, and they held on to it because it was easier than asking who I'd really become. So I said it, quiet but steady. "You never knew because you never asked." The words landed like soft thunder. No one flinched, but the room shifted. Aunt Margaret put her glass down and said she was sorry. Her voice shook, and for once, there was no defense in her tone. I nodded, but I didn't smile. "I'm not angry at any of you," I said, "but it's the truth. You assumed I was distant because I didn't care. But maybe I stopped coming around because I got tired of being invisible." Someone whispered my name, like they weren't sure if they were allowed to speak. I turned to them and said, "I didn't need you to understand every mission or every loss. I just needed someone to ask how I was doing, and actually listen to the answer." It was quiet again, but this time, it wasn't cold. It felt like something cracking open. "I know my life doesn't look like what you expected," I continued, "but that doesn't make it any less worthy. I've seen the worst parts of humanity and tried to bring a little light into them. I've held people's hands as they died. I've watched strangers become brothers." My dad cleared his throat, eyes on the table. "I didn't know," he said, barely above a whisper. I looked at him for a long second and said, "I know you didn't. That's what I've been saying." The pain didn't go away, but something inside me settled. I wasn't asking for their approval. I wasn't here to be accepted anymore. I had come to speak the truth, and now they had to carry it too. "I'm not broken," I said softly, "and I don't regret my choices. I just wish someone had asked sooner." Then I sat down, medal still in my hand, and for the first time in years, I felt light. Not because they finally saw me, but because I had made sure they couldn't unsee me now. I stepped outside and let the door close behind me. The air was cool and quiet, a welcome change from the heavy silence I had left behind. I didn't look back. My heels clicked softly on the sidewalk as I walked to the street, heart steady, head clear. I wasn't angry anymore, just done chasing something I didn't need. For the first time in years, I felt light. Not because anything had changed in that room, but because I had stopped waiting for it to. I had said my piece, and that was enough. The hotel lobby was mostly empty, except for a couple at the bar and a bellhop near the elevators. A TV mounted on the wall above the lounge played the evening news. Volume low, but captions running. I glanced up and froze. It was my face. My name appears across the bottom of the screen. Captain Claire Morrison honored for leadership and valor during classified operation, the anchor was saying. Sources confirmed the president personally signed the recommendation. They showed footage from an earlier press conference. A Pentagon spokesperson called the mission historic, mentioning courage, strategy, sacrifice. I stood there, alone in a lobby full of strangers, and watched the world call me a hero. And I smiled, not because I needed the world to see it, but because I already knew who I was. I walked out into the night, the city lights reflecting off the pavement. My breath came easy. I didn't carry shame anymore. I didn't carry silence. I had walked through war, through grief, through years of being overlooked, and I had come out standing tall. That was more than enough. They could forget me. They could misunderstand me. But I would never again forget myself.